In the 10th chapter of the book of Genesis, there is a name hidden in the text that most Bible teachers simply pass over.
The
And not
words of the
because it is
ancient tome
difficult to
reveal
pronounce,
themselves,
nor
a
because its
shadow of
meaning is
what is to
unclear.
come.
The reason is far deeper and more dangerous. The figure of Nimrod is so powerful that many fear to examine him seriously, for his story contains a force capable of changing the course of humanity. His name is Nimrod. At first glance, the Bible describes him as a mighty hunter before the Lord, the son of Cush. It sounds praiseworthy, almost heroic, but the ancient words of the text reveal a very different meaning. The word gibber, translated as mighty, appears only one other time in Genesis 6:4, referring to the Nephilim, the offspring of fallen angels and humans. This connection is never accidental. It is a signal for the attentive reader. Nimrod is not like other men. His essence is not in physical strength or hunting skill, but in his ability to influence people, organize them, build power, and reshape the world according to his own rules. The entire text of Genesis pauses on him. No other character is described with such detail. No one else receives this repeated literary emphasis, which forces the reader to stop and reflect. Ancient commentators, rabbis, and church fathers saw in him something more than just a hunter or ruler. They wrote that Nimrod symbolizes the first great rebellion against God, the first organized attempt by humans to establish their own rules while ignoring the divine order. He is not just a hunter in the forest. His hunting is a metaphor for power and control. He is a hunter among people, gathering nations under his wing, forming alliances, and creating systems that obey his will. His strength is not in the sword or bow. It lies in his ability to command hearts and minds. And this ability is what makes him dangerous. Nimrod does not merely break rules. He changes the very structure of human society, turning people into instruments of his will and separating them from God. Even more mysterious is Nimrod's connection to the fallen angels and the Nephilim. He is not merely human. He is an archetype of organized, conscious rebellion, casting a shadow over humanity that stretches across generations. His story is a warning. Even after the flood, when God started anew, the spirit of rebellion and the lust for power returns, and Nimrod is its first post-flood manifestation. Immediately after the flood, humanity was given a chance at a fresh start. The earth, washed clean by the waters, appeared like a new world. Rivers gleamed, fields were restored, the air was fresh. Noah and his family stepped onto this land as witnesses of new life. It seemed that the evil and corruption that had prevailed before the flood were destroyed, and humanity had the opportunity to create a world where truth and God reigned supreme. But even in this new world, darkness did not sleep for long. Within a few generations, Nimrod emerges. His birth is mysterious. The biblical text gives no answer to questions. Where did this power come from? This ability to organize people? This might before the Lord? He appears as a revolutionary force, echoing the atmosphere once created by the Nephilim before the flood. Did a remnant of the corrupted bloodline survive? Did supernatural forces intervene again in human history? Or is it simply a pattern of the human heart that even after purification, the desire for power and separation from God always returns? These questions remain unanswered. But one thing is indisputable. Nimrod is the first great manifestation of a power that should have remained forgotten. Nimrod does not merely exist. He steps onto the stage as a man who feels his own authority even before others recognize it. His genius lies in creating structure. He does not limit himself to hunting or military exploits. He builds cities that become centers of control and power. Babylon, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh. These are not just settlements. Each city is a system where people submit to the power of a single individual, where authority is concentrated in one leader's hands, and human independence yields to organized order. His goals are not personal fame among people. Nimrod creates a system that can exist without God, a system where force, fear, and order become law rather than faith. Every building, every city, every union of tribes is a step toward a new world operating on its own rules. He transforms the chaos after the flood into centralized, controlled power, and this trait makes Nimrod unique. He is not just a hunter or ruler. He is the symbol of humanity's post-flood temptation, to construct life without God, where human laws and power take the place of higher justice. His story warns that even after global cleansing, evil can return, but now it takes organized form, capable of influencing generations. The deep meaning of a mighty hunter before the Lord. Most translations treat this phrase as a compliment, but the ancient Hebrew construction and Jonathan's Targum interpret it differently. A mighty rebel before the Lord. It does not imply worship, but confrontation. Nimrod does not stand before God in awe. He sets himself against him. His name derives from the verb marad, to rebel, to revolt. In the ancient world, a name carried meaning. It was a prophecy, a description of essence. Even the text of Genesis pauses in the genealogy to emphasize, stop, pay attention to this man. Nimrod did not merely build cities. He initiated a system of rebellion against God, a plan extending far beyond human ambition. At the center of Babylon rose a tower, a ziggurat, not to honor the heavens or for prayer, but as a symbol of human pride and an attempt to invade the divine order. The architecture of the ziggurats was no accident. Each level reflected heavenly hierarchies, but their purpose was not spiritual. It was controlling and ritualistic. The tower's summit was intended not for prayer, but for rituals that would open channels to supernatural forces capable of influencing humanity. It was the first major spiritual experiment, an attempt to repeat what the Nephilim had done, to dominate the world not by the sword, but through a system of spirit and authority. The Septuagint emphasizes, this project was not merely a city, but a portal for spiritual intrusion. Babylon became the center of organized rebellion, a concentration of fear, power, and ritual magic capable of controlling entire people's minds. It was a structure that challenged the very order established by God. God reacts. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower. These words are not accidental. This is not mere curiosity. God acknowledges the conscious challenge, revealing the nature of Nimrod's intentions and those of his people. The scattering of languages and nations is not punishment for pride, as often interpreted, but a deliberate and thoughtful measure that interrupts the trajectory of spiritual intrusion. Had this project continued, it could have created a global system of control over humanity without God, where people serve not truth, but the structure of power and magic. Babylon and the Tower are not just an ancient city story. They testify that human ambition without God always seeks to replace divine order with its own, repeating the same mistakes that lead to spiritual destruction. It is a lesson for all generations. Even after the flood, even after cleansing, humanity is capable of rising against God if ambition is allowed to rule the heart. Nimrod as a prototype of later systems. The spirit of Nimrod did not die with Babylon's fall. His physical presence may have vanished, but his idea, his spirit of organized rebellion against God, survived and spread across the world. He became not merely a historical figure, but a symbol of a system of authority that seeks to replace God's order with human law and structure. This spirit migrated and adapted. Every new empire, every new city, every centralized power that subdued nations bore his imprint. From Goliath to the kings of Canaan, from Assyria to the centers of Babylonian culture, the same principle emerges, a system where people obey a single person or structure rather than God's order. Prophetic texts emphasize that this is not merely political history, but a spiritual struggle spanning centuries. Isaiah 14 describes the fall of the king of Babylon not just as a historical event, but as a mirror of heavenly rebellion, echoing what Nimrod and his city began. Daniel 2 portrays the statue of empires, where power passes from hand to hand like a baton of rebellion, continuing the spirit of centralized, prideful leadership opposed to God. Revelation 17-18 depicts the Great Babylon as the final manifestation of the same system, its scale encompassing the entire world. The same spiritual core repeats: power, control, centralization, and refusal to serve God's order. This story is not about isolated political events. It is a spiritual war, alive in human hearts and systems of power throughout millennia. Nimrod's system always resurfaces, adapting to new languages, civilizations, and technologies, finding new forms to challenge God and subjugate humanity. Every empire demanding absolute loyalty, every system where human power supersedes divine law, is a modern incarnation of Nimrod, his spirit never extinguished as long as humanity repeats his mistakes. After Babylon's fall, God begins a new system. He calls Abraham to establish a different lineage, not through human ambition, but through the gift of God's name and promise. The ancient contrast is clear. Nimrod, power through rebellion, an organized system created by man. Abraham, blessing through obedience, devotion to God, trust in his plan. These are two systems following parallel trajectories through history, one built by human intellect without God, the other by promise and divine order. Today we see remnants of Nimrod's systems in modern empires, corporations, and global power structures. The spirit that raised the tower in Shinar still works, seeking new ways to control people. But every attempt to raise a tower in rebellion against God ends in downfall. And here is the key. Then, now, and always, the choice remains with each individual to accept God's order or submit to Nimrod's spirit. Looking at Nimrod's story today, we do not merely study an ancient Bible. We see a universal principle shaping human history and influencing our lives.